2, 3. Good.
Suhas 27.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for all for being here. I'm Congressman Suhas, Subramanyam. This is my third week on the job. Unfortunately, today's topic is the federal government and federal workforce, and there's a lot going on. And so, as you probably know, we had a lot of interest in this, especially last minute, and so we didn't have big enough room. So I apologize for everyone who couldn't get in. There's some people outside if you're outside, I'm going to come out there afterwards and be available to talk. I'll be here till around 9-ish, so I'm happy to chat with any of you individually afterwards as well. We've probably gotten more inquiries into our office on this topic than anything else so far, and it's rightfully so because regardless of what you think about how good or bad the federal government is, how efficient it is, it affects a lot of people. And I think one of the things I've tried to explain to other members of Congress is that federal civil servants, military, federal workers, federal contractors, they're not just kind of faceless people who do bureaucratic work. They are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're many of you, and they do really important work. Many of you took pay cuts to be federal contractors, federal workers, to do the work that you wanted to do to serve our country. And so I have a great amount of respect for anyone who is serving our country at an agency or as a contractor. It's certainly one of the key parts of our economy here. If anyone's been around here, I've been around through a couple of shutdowns now. In Loudoun County alone, that's like a recession here, right? Imagine owning a restaurant in the city you may have where there's a shutdown. Think of how much business drops, right? The last time we had a shutdown, I talked to the food pantries in the area, and they were overrun, right? So that's our situation here. So it affects us personally. So I really appreciate you all coming out here to voice your opinions on this. A couple of housekeeping things. First, we can agree to disagree on things. We can get fired up about things. I love it. Let's just try to be respectful of each other. Try not to shout someone down if they're saying something you disagree with them. Direct your shouting at me, but not at each other, certainly. And then two, we're not going to be able to get to everyone and everything. And so I'll try to stick around, but our office is open to you all. You guys are VIPs anytime you come to the Longworth building, 1009. And so we'll make sure that you have a chance to talk to me. My cell phone number is very easy to get a hold of, but you might want to text and not call. I don't answer every call. But certainly, if you want to talk to me, I will find a way to talk to you. And so with that, I'm just going to start out for a little bit by talking about kind of where we are right now, and then some of the most frequently asked questions. We've got probably, a couple hundred questions, I think. Chris is nodding his head. But they kind of fell into the same 4 or 5 things. And so that made it a little bit easier I just get this out of the way by just answering those questions. But generally, this all started with Schedule F and DEI, and specifically that was targeted. And what's happening, I think the idea was DEI is about not getting the best people, but getting people of certain races. That's not how I've seen it work in the federal government in practice. But regardless of how you feel about that, we can agree or disagree on that. What I've started hearing from people who have called into our office is that people have programs that have the word diversity in it, maybe diversity of crops, diversity of something else, and they're getting cut because they have the word diversity on a PowerPoint 3 years ago. And they asked, why is my program getting cut? And the answer is, well, I need to cut a certain amount, and I don't know who else to cut. And so I saw the word diversity in your PowerPoint. And so it's not exactly a scalpel, right, when you're doing it that way. And I think that regardless of how you feel about DEI, this is not being executed in a very strategic way. The second thing is did anyone here get the fork in the road email or know about this fork in the road email? Yeah, so basically it's kind of worded as a buyout, but it's not actually a buyout. It's basically telling you to resign in the next 6 to 8 months, and that if you take this option, you don't have to come into work anymore. You're one of the few people that can telework, and so I would. A question that we got a lot was, what are we supposed to do with this? Is this real, and should we take the offer? I don't want to tell you should talk to a lawyer, you should talk to, if you're part of a union, talk to your union. I'll say that I don't know if I trust this offer. I don't know if I trust that they'll pay you through when they say they pay you. We appropriate funds in Congress. There's no appropriation for this right now. There's no money for this. So I would at least wait until you know the money's there before you take an offer like this. So that's just my, my personal opinion. But talk to your family and your own situation. But I think what we're seeing is not a lot of people are taking this offer. Yeah. The third is the federal. The third is the federal freeze last week, and so they announced that all programs, even if you worked in a nonprofit that relied on federal funding, your federal funding is frozen, and the idea is that if the water's leaving the hose and we can't do anything about it, let's shut off the hose for a little bit and see what happens. Well, if the hose is feeding kids and the hose is actually making sure that very essential government services are getting to people, then that's not a hose you want to shut off, right? You can do the review while still making sure that the funds that have already been appropriated by Congress get to the people they need. And so the question that I've been asked a lot is this legal? Can they do this? The answer is no. Congress has the power of the purse, and we decide how to appropriate funding and how to authorize funding and where to authorize it. And so once the program is authorized and appropriated, it is not, in my view, or really any legal person's view that the president can unilaterally say, well, those funds are not going to go out. And I think it's a dangerous precedent to set to even do it. But I know that there are lawsuits already. There was a lawsuit the day that it was going to be implemented, and the lawsuit was successful in resulting in an injunction, which basically stopped it. And then you saw that they took back the memo that was released announcing that freeze. And so the executive orders, as the administration clarified, are still in order. They were not rescinded. And so I would expect that this might continue to be an effort by the administration to freeze federal funding to many programs. And if you were a program, if you're a nonprofit, or if you were a federal program or a part of a federal program that would have been affected by this, continue to stay on your toes and reach out to our office if you see that something has happened. There's the most recent thing, the Treasury and the processing of payments. Does anyone hear about this? Yeah. That's a little bit. This is all scary to me, at least. But you may disagree. I want to hear from you. But this is particularly important to our region because we have a lot of federal contractors, first of all, and so we have a lot of federal workers. And so what they have now is access to everyone's private data, and including social security numbers, and that's caused a lot of consternation. It concerns me that they have access to a lot of things about you. The other thing that concerns me is if a federal contractor does work and wants to get paid, and they have the ability to pause that payment, they could pause it indefinitely and the contractor may not get paid. One of the reasons why people work with the federal government is because they can rely on the federal government to pay them eventually, right? And that's going to make it really hard for us to do really basic things in our government if we're not seen as a reliable entity when it comes to just paying people, right? And so tonight I believe a lawsuit was filed to try to shut that off. You're starting to hear a theme here. And then a couple other things have happened, the FBI and USAID. I was at USAID today, this afternoon. We tried to get in, they wouldn't let us in. What I heard from some people was that USAID is not a useful program. Well, it's a very useful agency, and it actually helps us stay out of wars. It helps prevent wars. It helps prevent extremism from taking hold. Extremism usually takes hold in a country or region because the people there are desperate. And a little bit of an investment in that region means that you really cut off the message for extremists, which is that whether it's America and the West, aren't good for nothing, right? If we're coming in there and we're feeding people, feeding kids, if we're getting them access to really important, cancer screenings or vaccines, that can make a huge difference and a ripple effect for many generations. And so they tried to cut off all funding. If they want to get rid of USAID, I think now we're starting to see the Secretary of State backtrack a little bit on that as well. And so the question I got again is this legal? The answer, again, for me is no, it's not legal. And so The reason is that we actually passed legislation that created USAID, and we've authorized funding to them. And so they need to come to Congress to actually get rid of USAID. And frankly, they don't have the votes, I think. If they want to come to Congress and pitch the idea, we're happy to hear them out. I just don't think it's a good idea or going to be very successful. And I had a few people who work for the FBI reach out who are very concerned as well about the politicization of the FBI. We're trying to get more information on exactly what's going to happen next. I know the people who prosecuted January 6th are basically being terminated. And so we don't know what else will come down, but we'll keep you posted on that. And so I haven't gotten to other things that are going to happen, like the Department of Education, and there's just going to be a lot of things that happen. I think one of the things that I get asked the most now is, what are you doing about it? Like, are we just going to sit back and let this happen, right? So the answer is absolutely not, right? And there's going to be... So one thing you kept hearing when I was talking about all that stuff and trying to answer the questions was lawsuits, right? And so members of Congress cannot file the lawsuits ourselves. We can't go to court and file it. If we could, I certainly would. Brush up that law degree. But other groups can. And so like tonight's lawsuit against the actions towards the Treasury Department, that was filed by a couple federal unions. There's a couple other groups that filed the lawsuits over the previous week, but members of Congress do not have standing. With that said, we are supportive of the lawsuit, and I think they'll be successful ultimately. And the reason why, even if you disagree, even if you agree with the actions, if you're in Congress, you should be supportive of the actions because what they're trying to do is take away the power of Congress, right? And the power of Congress, the power of the purse, the power to authorize money, and to really do anything. And so what's the point of Congress if we don't have the power to decide how money is spent? What's the point of Congress if we listen to you, we try to pass legislation, and then the executive branch is ignoring it, right? We're completely taking away a whole branch of government, and I think it's unconstitutional, it's undemocratic. And so that's the case that's going to be made in court. I think ultimately it's going to be successful, but I don't know right now with the judiciary what's going on either. That's their branch of government. We're not sure of yet, but we do believe it's going to be successful. Another thing that I think is important to understand is we can still introduce legislation to clarify things. I'm going to introduce legislation on a topic that we haven't talked about yet, which is moving agencies away from here. There's this idea that we should take all the agencies in this region and move them to other states, red states specifically. And the reason why that's not a great idea is because, one, it costs a lot of money. And if this whole practice is about making sure we cut off funding so that we save taxpayers money, well, moving an agency is the opposite of that. It costs a lot more money. We have a lot of the talent already here, and we already have a lot of the expertise here. So moving an agency also is really bad for our economy, but that's not the case we're going to make. The case we're going to make, though, is that this is the best thing for America, and certainly for our region. The other part of this is I'm on the oversight committee, and so that's the one committee in charge of oversight of all the agencies. It's kind of a catch-all committee, and I'm the ranking member on the military and foreign affairs subcommittee, so I'm going to call for a hearing on USAID. I don't have the power to actually force them to have the hearing, so if we're not going to have a hearing, if they don't let us have a hearing on issues related to what's happening, then maybe we'll just have more town halls like this and more like public hearings. And that leads me to the other point, which is that the public pressure is working. And so you've seen so if they hear from a lot of people that a federal freeze is a terrible idea, and then they will backtrack. And I think in a lot of ways we're being tested right now. They're wanting to know whether you care, right? They want to know whether you'll stand up and use your voice, and we'll fight. And every time that we've shown that we will, they've backtracked. Even today, after we were at USAID, the Secretary of State now is getting mixed messages on their plans for USAID. The federal freeze, that was like a complete 180 felt. And then they didn't want people taking the victory lap, and so they backtracked. But if you use your voice and you can stand up and you share your stories with us, share your stories publicly, and you make it known that this is not something you want, that it's not acceptable, they will respond. And so, yes, we're doing everything we possibly can in Congress. I am doing everything I possibly can. This is, a very critical issue for our region, very critical issue for our neighbors. I live on a cul-de-sac where pretty much everyone's a federal worker or contractor. So, I want to make sure that my neighbors are taken care of, my friends are taken care of. But it's not even about that. It's about making sure that we give the American people everything we can. And our federal workforce does so much. And to see them vilified right now, I think is a disservice to our country. And a lot of people that I know in the federal workforce, could have been making a lot more money in the private sector, but chose to do this with their degrees or with their expertise or their skills because they wanted to be part of something bigger. And so I'll stop there, and I want to hear from you though. So I talked a lot just now, but what I really want to do is make sure that I hear all perspectives on this. I've read many of the emails that have come in, if not all of them. Some people have called our office, and so my staff takes notes of everything you say, and I get a report at the end of the day, so I'm reading through them. And so I know what you're saying when you call, when you text, and when you email. But I wanted to hear you all and be here face to face with you. And so I think with that, we're going to probably start taking some comments from folks. The time limit is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. If you go over, please try not to go over because we want to get through a lot of people's comments basically. So we would rather not cut off your mic. Second, if we can stay on topic, there's a lot going on in the world. And so I get it. If there's other things that you want to talk to me about, let's talk about it offline. I'll even do a separate town hall on another topic if you want me to. I'm happy to do that. But let's just be respectful and let's share our opinions. And then if you have ideas on things that I should be doing or that Congress should be doing, now is the time. Please let us know either now or afterwards. Come find me and we'll talk more. So thank you all, and I look forward to hearing from you.
If you don't mind, sir.
Yes.
Yes, the easiest way for this to happen, we're going to use the 2 podiums. So if you guys would like to speak at the podiums, my recommendation is to step behind my 2 guards on the far left and right hand side and just line up behind those guys and pick a left or a right, please. Please be careful. Please be careful. And sir, we'll just leave it up to you. You can call left, right, and that's it.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can come to the podium. You will go first.
Thank you, Representative. I'll be very brief. Things to do: refuse to negotiate. Trump is using federal programs as hostages in a power grab. Democrats must refuse to engage in any funding or debt ceiling negotiations while any form of freeze, formal or informal, or USAID is closed, fired employees are locked out. No compromises with dictatorship. Continue to sound the alarm. I love seeing you on TV today. Continue to do that. And also, back any legal challenges, in a friendly manner, like you mentioned, I think back to the home amicus briefs or amplifying particular cases and so on and so forth. Just to make sure it's not just morally wrong, but it's illegal. Thank you.
Good to meet you, Representative. So, my name is Connie Rice. I've been in Leesburg well over 30 years, raised 3 boys here, all Eagle Scouts, Marine veteran. Page 5 of Project 2025 describes me as a pedophile, a pornographer, and a child abuser, and suggests that I should be put to death. Page 5. I need to know that there's not going to be death camps. I seriously need to know that there's not going to be death camps. Back to the federal employment. A friend of mine is a transgender PhD, brilliant, authority in cybersecurity. Today, out of the blue, she was told to renew her security paperwork. First question, gender history. First question on an SCI. So what looks to me like they're gonna fire her, say she lied on with her form. We don't know. We don't know what they're gonna do, right? But obviously, since they scrubbed the T from everything, even the State Department came back and put LGB travel out and took the T off. We need to know that they're not gonna kill us. There's people making plans to run to Canada. We don't know what to do. That's all I got.
Suhas, I just have one question. I live in a 55 and older community, and I've been getting calls, I'm active. I've been getting a lot of calls from seniors that they're very concerned about their Social Security and that their Medicare, the way he keeps talking about it. I know Trump came out and said publicly that he wasn't going to touch it, but we must now, entering into the Treasury Department and taking over, people getting very upset and nervous. Is there any way that you can reach out to the communities and let them know that don't worry, it's taken care of and it's secure? Thank you.
Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, I mean, again, we feel like that needs to go through a legislative process. And again, if they withhold funds from those programs, we believe that that's illegal as well. So, and Congress, we're not going to vote for anything if they run those programs. That's not something that we believe is right for our country. So, we'll do everything we can for them. But I don't think they have the votes to for that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I just have my name is Ines from Ashburn. I just have a quick comment. I'm concerned about the fact that they brought in hard drives to take PII information. I work in cybersecurity, and I'm concerned about the chain of custody. Who has this information? And what are they going to do with this information? There's no transparency of what they're doing with that, and now everybody's information's in whose hands?
Hopefully it's not a folder
My husband's identity stolen, okay? And it was through Johns Hopkins. He had his identity stolen. They had his Social Security, and they created a driver's license and everything. So I'm concerned about everybody's information. So that's all.
No, this is a great point, and it's something we're going to keep looking after. Thank you. And if you hear of anyone who had their information stolen or your information was stolen, let our office know. We will blow the whistle for you, and we will make sure that everyone knows what's going on.
I completely agree with everything everybody said and appreciate what you're doing and having this town hall. I have a quick question. There's a march or something at the Treasury tomorrow, and I'd like to go, but I'm afraid to go. Do you think it's safe to go? At 5 o'clock, I believe, at the Treasury tomorrow.
Okay. Don't be afraid. Now's the time to speak up and act. So.
A suggestion and a small request that perhaps you and your fellow congressmen could put together. It would be really nice to know that I have a number or that I can call or text when Doge shows up and tells me to do something legal. It will be a lot easier to say no if there's a congressman standing next to me.
We'll look into that, actually. We'll get back. Thank you.
Hello. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I'm a federal contractor. My wife's a federal employee. Some of the issues have already been addressed, but actually two of the last ones, so maybe I'll make it more pointed. Is there currently a resource where, never before in our lives have we felt like freedom of speech has been impinged upon? Now's the time. So where is a safe place where we are able to report things, particularly within the agencies now? Because, whereas previously you were able to run out the chain of command and have places to go, now we fear retribution and consequences for calling out things that are blatantly illegal or dangerous or security issues. So where would be a good place for us to report these issues that we could do so in a safe manner that we won't be retaliated against.
Yeah, that's a very good question. This brings up a good point, which I think maybe our office is going to try to put together like a resource guide so that you know who to contact. Right now it's kind of shifting because we don't know who to trust really at different agencies. So it used to be like you go to your manager, you go to an ombudsman or something, but now we don't know if those positions, they fired all the inspectors general, right, and ombudsmen, and so it's rapidly shifting. We're going to try to see what we can do to give people resources so they can at least have someone to contact. Same with the previous person as well. Thank you.
Congressman, thank you. I want to talk small businesses. With all this nonsense going on, there's small businesses that are going to be out of business. I can tell you myself, I have 150 employees that we've been stopped work on an immigration program. And this time next week, I'm going to have to lay off 150 people. And I want to understand what Congress is going to do to help with this.
Yeah, thank you. We'll try to get you some more resources as well. Any in particular that you help with?
Money. All right.
Yeah, let's talk afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know if there's any talk in Congress about impeaching Trump or also the fact that Trump is constitutionally disqualified from serving as president under the 14th Amendment. I want to know why Congress hasn't spoken about that, why no one objected to the certification of his electoral votes on the 6th.
Yeah, I think he got impeached twice his first term. So he's got a track record of getting impeached. Impeachment is not a legal process, it's a political process too. So just keep that in mind and look at our battle right now.
Are there any other ways that he could be removed from office aside from impeachment?
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. But yeah, we'll just let the presidency play out, but certainly do everything we can in the meantime when the bad things happen to try to push back. But I appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you're doing. And I just want to know if there's anything else we can do to help you or help our country. I'm not a federal employee, I'm retired, I have time.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think someone said there's a thing at the Treasury Department tomorrow. I didn't even know about that. Now I'm going to go. But I do think that if you feel passionately, that try to get involved and get engaged and spread the word. I think apathy is the way to let bad things happen, certainly. And so if you want to speak up for your neighbors and for federal workforce and for democracy, then use your voice any way you can, however you'd like. So stay involved and stay engaged. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman. I would like to know if there is anything that you in Congress are looking to do to restore executive orders to the power that they are supposed to be, and not to let them continue to be what they are being abused as.
Yeah, I think that we're certainly going to introduce legislation. I think the legislation may not have the votes, but certainly we're going to try to push and see what we can do. And certainly in committees and certainly just in the public eye, we're going to try to make sure to get that point out. That's a good question.
I do, are you going to go about it in the constitutional route to make sure that, hey, this is the language that was spelled out, this is what this executive branch does, and make sure that all the other legislators, we keep it in check. Each branch checks every other branch.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of what we're going to try to do, and the way that we can try to push back is by spelling out those separations of powers, because that's so important right now, more than ever. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I've been a federal worker for 24 years. I've been in my agency for that long. And every day for the last week or two, everyone has been scared. Everyone is afraid every day a shoe's going to drop and we're going to get cut. If you work on a DEI initiative, you're gonna get cut. If you worked in a working group, you're gonna get cut. Today, the CFPB had a stop work order, so no one at the CFPB can do anything, even cases in litigation. So I think what would be really helpful for federal workers is to have someone in your office or in Congress letting us know, maybe weekly, what is going on, what's happening. Because I feel like we're hearing rumors from, this agency's doing this, and this agency's doing this, and this is happening, and everyone is terrified. And it's hard to do our work. And so, anyway, it would be really great if we could have maybe some central place where federal workers could go and figure out exactly what is happening in each agency, maybe weekly or every couple days.
Yeah, Chris over here. Chris is in the back over there, legislative director. Abby in the corner is our chief of staff. I think part of the problem is you guys probably know better than we do what's going on at the agencies. So if you reach out to us and let us know what's going on, then we can do our best to push back, right, and spread the word amongst our colleagues in Congress and anywhere else possible, in the legal community as well. So we should continue to communicate and show people what's going on. So thank you for this. I think we have like a newsletter, we have a website, we have like the social media. You should definitely follow that. But I think if we can have like a more direct communication line between federal workers at these different agencies and us, we would love to set that up. And so we can take that as an action item. Thank you.
Mr. Congressman, I'm so happy to be able to call you that now. I thank you very much for coming out here, explaining these things, explaining to us that you're not all sitting back there and relaxing and waiting to see what's going to happen. I guess my point is, what more can Congress do, and what more can the Democratic Party do, and I'll be partisan here, do to get out the word of what people are doing and how people can react and how we're going to stop Trump from what he is doing. I hear every day, and I'm sure you hear the same thing, you hear Democrats saying, my God, we watch all these people getting approved for cabinet level positions. No one seems to be able to stop it. You have all these things going on in the federal agencies. No one seems to be able to stop it. You have now the undocumented immigrant community is very, very upset. What's going to happen to them? What is the impact of the Riley, what is the bill? It's the Riley. Yeah. What is the impact of that? So it's not so much a question, but I think we need to be doing more. We really need, people are frightened, and somehow Congress, the Democratic Party, and the people who care need to be able to get out a message to the United States, to Virginia, to everybody. This is what is going on, and this is what we are doing about it, and this is the way we are going to stop it. And I think we need that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ariana. I'm an ex-traffic controller, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not here. I'm here as a constituent because Wednesday rocked our world. It completely devastated the aviation community, and we became under fire almost immediately for reasons that are not attributed to the incident that happened. So we had the FAA reauthorization bill last year, which mandated the FAA hire the max amount of controllers for the next 5 years. I believe that supersedes any EOs, yet we were still put under the hiring freeze where they removed our job applications from USA Jobs. So what is the plan moving forward to ensure that we can meet the FAA reauthorization bill and hire the max number of controllers?
Yeah. Thank you for what you do, and we're all very still in grief about what happened, but we know that what came from the administration afterwards wasn't appropriate either. And I'll say that you're absolutely right, and the theme of tonight seems to be, what are we going to do about it? Part of this is legislative, part of this is legal, though. And on the legal side, I think there needs to be clarification on what that says. I mean, really, we have to make sure that programs that have already been authorized and funded go through, right? Because Congress has its own powers, the executive branch has their own powers, right? And they've used them, certainly, EOs, pardons, but they cannot overstep the bounds of another branch of government. Otherwise, what's the point of Congress? What's the point of our democracy at that point? And so we will absolutely fight that, and certainly, again, we can't sue ourselves, but groups hopefully will be there to take this to court as well, and prevent that and implement. Because as we know, we need air traffic controllers. We need them fresh. We need to make sure they make sure for one crash, there's hundreds of thousands of flights that go up and down safely. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep the pool safe. And that's what that bill was for last year, is bipartisan too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, I'm Joyce Connery, I'm a refugee from the 7th District, but I'm here tonight. So first of all, co-equal branches of government also means the Republican Party, so I hope that you guys are reaching across the aisle, because they also appropriate funds and they have made decisions that are being crossed by this administration. So I want to give a little bit of perspective, because I just stepped down as the head of an agency, so I got the other side of the emails, the fork in the road emails, which was also to how we were supposed to address this. We didn't have a choice. These emails went to our staff. We didn't know those emails were going to our staff. We got them in our own email boxes, and then we were told that should anyone take up one of these offers to rest until September or to take another job until September, we would still have to pay them, and we would have to reassign their duties to somebody else and or eliminate their positions. I work at a nuclear safety organization, or did until Friday, and that seems quite terrifying, because you can't necessarily replace a criticality safety expert with, I don't know, an accountant. It doesn't work that way. The other issue is that there is an option for national security exemption for agencies. Not all national security agencies, to my knowledge, are accepting those national security exemptions, which means that they won't be able to exempt these positions from being eliminated. And they're being eliminated arbitrarily because it's your choice to leave. So I think the national security implications are huge, not to mention that some of these people have security clearances. Somebody mentioned that earlier. So what happens if you take the option to get paid and be on leave for 7 months and you have a security clearance? We don't even have any direction as to what's going to happen to those security clearances. If you're a federal worker, I recommend that you download your information from EOPF before you don't have the opportunity. There are some people who are not having the opportunity to go get their documentation. They're told to FOIA their information, their own documents, in order to get them. So this is a little bit, I think, more dramatic, and we can't wait for lawsuits in order to take action. We have to be able to address those.
Hi, Congressman, it's nice to see you again. I didn't know I was going to speak today. I've been moved by the Spirit or something, and I just wanted to say I'm wearing my Moms Demand Action shirt, and although I love being a member of Moms Demand Action, I'm speaking today as Julia Jarvis, who lives here in Leesburg, not as a representative of Moms Demand Action. I have a question. We've been talking about the executive branch and the judiciary branch and the legislative branch. And if I remember my 6th grade class with Mrs. Fahrenbrook, they are the 3 branches that use checks and balances to control our government. But I'm having a little trouble figuring something out. Maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough to Mrs. Fahrenbrook. But could you tell me, please, to which branch does Elon Musk belong? I gather from the sense of the room that I'm not the only person who would like to.
Thank you for coming, Congressman. I'm an executive within a federal contractor, that gentleman back there. 2 things. Speaking about DOJ, who appropriated the funds for that agency? When did that happen? And the second is a really concern, someone who's got a security clearance and the process that I had to go through to get that clearance. And now you have DOJ going into agencies, getting classified information with people who don't have clearances. And when did they get their clearance? And are they going through the same process that most of us had to go through for that? So that's a big concern.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
So the first question was the funds for DOJ. It's sad, but there's a group called the U.S. Digital Service that I actually worked quite a bit with. In my office, I worked in the Obama White House Head Start, and they were meant to actually go around to agencies and help them adopt new technologies and fix kind of broken processes. Fantastic organization. They've been renamed the U.S. DOJ Service, and now I think they're using the funding that was supposed to go to the U.S. Digital Service to help implement this. And so that's what happened. That's the funding. We didn't actually fund DOJ in Congress, as far as I know. Second, what was the second question?
The individuals getting security clearance, right?
Security clearance. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
I'd really like to know, again, as the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs and Military sub, because I remember when I got my security clearance, it took 8 months.
Yeah.
To get my
And it was painful. It's painful.
So how are people 3 weeks on the job going around doing things that should be inside skips, right? So I have a lot of questions about that. It's a very good point. Thank you.
I'm Tina Cheatham. I'm from the hills out by Lovettsville. I was a federal employee for 34 years. About half of that was in the federal SES. And I was in charge towards the end of my career of operations for a multi-billion dollar organization. And so following up with my concerns are very similar to the concerns we just heard about particularly DOJ having access to data, to like the cybersecurity comment, to have access to data without having those clearances. Those of us who have been there administering billions of dollars know that those are positions of public trust with great scrutiny on your finances, on your conflicts of interest. And now we have private citizens, and if Wired is to be believed, 19-year-olds in college working along with a private citizen with access to our Treasury payment system. And it's more than Social Security numbers in there, right? Because it's Social Security payments, so it's all the bank routing information. It's the bank accounts for all of us who are feds and all of us who are retirees. And what's to say that they won't do harm with it? These people who don't have the clearances. And so as our person on House Oversight, I hope that you really get in there and hold them accountable for what they're doing with data, how they're ensuring the Privacy Act is followed, right? How they're ensuring that the NIST standards are followed, that the highest level of cybersecurity is applied to this, and that no ill is going to happen with people. Frankly, we've got somebody that's not even been in this country all that long, and not even been a U.S. citizen for maybe 20 years. And he's got access to all of that he can feed into AI, he can feed our bank accounts. In the Treasury system, you can also, I was just telling some friends this, you can also claw back payments. So that's also a good concern. You can stop payments, but you can claw back payments. So that's the gloom and doom, but thank you for having us all here and for being willing to listen and go get them.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm from Sterling, and I've been a big supporter of yours and voting for you for years. And I was really very surprised when you voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which is a gross politicization of this woman's death, and it's cruelty disguised as policy. And I really want to understand why you voted for that, for our undocumented neighbors to fall into this legal black hole based on accusations alone. And I really want to understand from you what made you feel compelled to vote for that.
Yeah, thank you. We're a little off topic, but that's okay. Right now, if someone is undocumented here, even if they don't commit a crime, they can technically be detained, deported, right? And so what Laken Riley was saying was, if they commit a crime or arrested for committing a crime, then they can be detained. And
my understanding, forgive me for interrupting you, is that it can be based solely on an accusation of committing a crime.
Arrest, which would require probable cause, but right now that's the case right now anyway, right? Which is that they can, if someone is arrested, even if they haven't been charged, they can still be detained and deported, even if they didn't commit a crime, right? But, there's a couple things, there's another bill as well, that had to do, VAWA, that had to do with like domestic abuse as well, and violence against women, right? And we're gonna have to have a larger conversation on immigration. I think that's why the next town hall, I think, is probably gonna be on immigration. I'd like to hear more and talk more about it, but there's gonna be a conversation on what to do with undocumented immigrants, 15 million plus in this country, right? I support a path to citizenship for most, if not as many as possible, because many of them have good jobs, and many of them contribute a lot to our economy and our neighbors, and have been here for a long time. But there has to be some sort of vetting process too. And so for ones that have a criminal background, for instance, like we have to really decide, are those folks going to get a path to citizenship?
But
what does that going to look like?
If there was already a mechanism in place to arrest and try or deport these undocumented, immigrants in this country, then why did we need this Laken Riley Act?
My opinion is we didn't need it.
But you voted yes for it.
I think the message to send, though, it was a messaging bill, and the message to send there was that, you can be for immigration reform and support undocumented immigrants, but still be for, protecting our community, law and order, make sure there's a vetting process if we want to have a path to citizenship for people as well. And so I thought the message was just as important. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Congressman, for hosting this town hall. I'm going to echo what a lot of the previous speakers had said. Do you have any confidence that the legal or legislative actions that are going to be taken to stop DOGE and the fire hose of horror coming out, it seems by the hour, about Elon Musk and his underage army of minions is going to be able to keep up? That's my first question. My second question is, what are your Republican colleagues doing about it? Are they staying silent? Do they feel listening? Are they on Elon's side? And lastly, what can we do about Elon? How can we get him the hell out of here?
So on the legal side, kind of a dry answer, but I'll try to get a long story short. There's things you can do in the short term to stop things, right? Like injunctions, right? TROs to stop things from happening. And so in this case, they're trying to implement decisions and programs and things like that. And like we saw with the federal freeze, you can go to court really quickly and stop it. But then the actual litigation can sometimes take a while too. Someone was saying earlier, don't wait for the courts to decide. They're also going to appeal everything up to the Supreme Court, which can be its own roll of the dice right now. And so, right now I think the focus is on stopping things, like stopping a federal freeze, stopping them from firing people en masse. And hopefully, the court system will move quickly so that we can definitively say that this is not legal. And then on Congress' side, I hope that we can, it's a bipartisan thing, it doesn't look like it is, we can pass legislation to clarify the authorization of some of these programs and clarify legislative language that they're saying is ambiguous. And so I think that's, my job in Congress is to try to do that, but we have to make sure we stop the bad things first, and a lot of that happens in court. Thank you.
Thank you for putting this on. As an intern, now a federal contractor, technical lead, supporting our cybersecurity mission for the government. Sans figuring out where this email server is that they just stood up somewhere on the network. We're a bit concerned when it comes to contract renewal or procurement about bias against certain things in a contract. Just, if there's anything we can do to reach out or to say something like, hey, we believe there might be a bias in the procurement or renewal of a contract would be great for many of us.
Yeah, I think part of this, effort that's troublesome is that it's being executed by people who don't know things like that and don't know how the federal government works, really. And so I think you're going to start to see unintended shifts in that we're going to have to shift back because what you just talked about is very important. And so we're just going to have to continue to see, again, I want to hear everything you all are hearing at the agencies or from your friends at agencies. Reach out to us and we'll call out all the things that are happening and try to see what we can do to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman, I was nervous and reticent to come up here and speak just for retaliation purposes. I just wanted to share some things that are going on at my agency. In the last week, we had Elon Musk in our building, and after he visited the building, he called for a 50% cut of the entire agency. My colleagues are getting 15-minute one-on-one check-ins with 19, 20, and 21-year-old college graduates asking to justify their existence. Supervisors are being told not to tell their staff anything, withhold information, and today we got word that supervisors must now fill out a justification form and that there's going to be just a 30% rank and yank with all staff of my agency. And to top it all off, one of Musk's top lieutenants and his wife and young child have shacked up on the 6th floor of our agency and are living there. The hallway's been blocked off with a special access list for people who can't get back there. Queer and trans folks of my agency are being doxxed in public. Their lives threatened. What are you going to do about it?
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that because I hadn't heard of any of that. And so, please, let's talk afterwards. Let's take action. Thank you.
I hope you don't mind. I came back. My wife's in the overflow room, so I'm asking her question now. So my wife is one of the federal employees who started telework long before COVID, because her agency offered that. My wife also has a medical condition, and a reasonable accommodation was never required before. But since everyone's returned to work, everyone's been applying, especially people that haven't had the necessity before. My question is, do you have any assurances about the protections of people that would fall under either ADA or reasonable accommodations? We know that this administration has a history of demeaning people with disabilities previously in public and is not ashamed to do so. So I'm just wondering on her behalf, if she's able to accept a reasonable accommodation if she has a job to begin with, is that something that she would have a target on her back, or are there enough protections in place for people like that she should still feel safe to keep her job and be able to take that reasonable accommodation? Thank you.
That's a good question. It's really sad that you have to ask that, but certainly the American Disability Act is very critical, and it applies to our agencies and as well as the accommodations that are currently in place. So I would say she should let us know if there's any violations of that, and we will certainly do everything we can for her, but it's sad that we're even here talking about that. Thank you.
I just wanted to throw out an idea that I know does happen in other countries when the loyal to the Constitution, in this case, opposition, you guys basically can form a shadow government. They call it a shadow government as a way to sort of organize yourselves so that it's not all on you, and there's groups of people that are watching this pile, this burning pile, and this pond pile, the way they do that in other countries. Maybe that's a way to help organize some of the opposition. Thanks.
My name is Clifford Gill. I'm a Navy veteran, a retired federal law enforcement officer. I've been a federal contractor, getting ready to hopefully get somewhere else in there. And as I see this room and I hear what everybody's saying, it's all about people. And that seems to be the missing piece from all these initiatives, or the impacts to the people. So I got a couple of notes here, so I'm going to kind of scramble through them, almost incoherent. One of the things you'd said was the moving of federal headquarters away from Washington, D.C. So one of the staffers might want to write this down. There's a law for USC 72, and that says that Congress has to approve that. Now, as soon as I say those words, it seems like the guardrails have been removed with the concept of official acts and that impeachment is a political thing. So without bipartisan, that stuff doesn't happen, and it's more of a show unless the removal happens. So you'd ask one of the things that you could do. I think really building partnerships across the aisle is that force multiplier. To do that, another thing that I want to say is of all the retirees that I speak to, the federal employees and the contractors, there is just fear, insecurity in jobs and livelihood. 10 seconds, all right, I'm going to say a couple of things. So Elon Musk, his name's come up a couple of times. And when I think of, well, how much money am I going to earn my entire lifetime? My entire lifetime, how much money am I going to earn? And how do we balance it against 10? Because we're talking about empathy. How can he relate to me? And I realized, doing quick math, that it would take me not 100,000 years, but 100,000 lifetimes to earn his wealth. How can he empathize with anybody? And when I bounce that the other way, well, how can I empathize with somebody that makes so much less? It would be a person that makes less than $8 their entire lifetime. Can I empathize with that? And this is a guy pulling the triggers in our workforce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman. Thank you for doing this. My name is Kusma Lady. I'm from Gainesville. a federal employee. So my question is, the DOGE, Musk, everything you heard already, having a person with a security clearance, with a federal career for 24 years, to some extent I'm scared. What is Congress doing to help the federal employees to bring that confidence back in them, saying your jobs are safe, you don't have to worry, because we all have seen the email that came, fork in the road email. It said if you don't accept this, then the retaliation can be you can be fired tomorrow. What kind of protections that we have in place, those kind of information, if that can be disseminated from your office, that might be helpful for folks like us to know, hey, these are all the clauses within Constitution that is there to protect us. At the same time, yourself and your colleagues, what can you guys do to kind of put some guardrails around Musk or DOGE, whoever you want to call, and those are my concerns. Appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. To answer your question, as I was saying before, we're going to try to take it as an action item and put out resources for federal employees and contractors. As far as what else we can do, I mean, I talked a lot about legal, I talked a lot about legislative and the committees, but in the end, we also, as members of Congress and all elected leaders, have a microphone in ourselves, literally sometimes, and you all need to tell us what's going on too, and we will need to tell you what courses we can take, what actions we can take, but we need to work together, and we need to make sure that we get the word out of everything that's going on, because I do think the more we talk, the more we speak, the more we push, it does put pressure on them. They do tend to back down, and so I think part of this is going to be just being loud and being out there and not being afraid. If you're a federal employee, you've been trained your whole career not to be political and to make sure that no matter who's president, that you're serving the American people. And so this is not natural to a federal employee. In fact, it's supposed to be something that's not political. I don't think this going on, I think this goes beyond politics. I think this goes to our Constitution, our division of powers, our democracy. I don't think speaking out about what's happening in your agency is political. It's just trying to save your agency and our democracy. So I encourage everyone to do that.
Good evening. This night has been super heavy, and I don't think I'm alone in feeling that way. So I just wanted to use the allotted minute and a half to speak to some of the great works of USAID and foreign assistance writ large at a time when it feels like this really critical component is about to collapse. So foreign aid is not just charity, it's an investment in stability, diplomacy, and American interests. When we abandon these commitments, we make our country more vulnerable. We must take action now to reverse what is happening. Thank you so much for going to the Ronald Reagan building earlier today. Your presence was really noted. USA touches on economic growth. Investment in developing countries creates more resilient markets for U.S. exports. These investments also benefit the supply chains that U.S. industries rely on. Looking at foreign policy, USAID's assistance programs promote U.S. foreign policy interests. USAID is a leader in humanitarian assistance, providing aid to people in crisis or disaster. With the removal of critical and strategic programs, it will create a void for our adversaries, such as China and Russia, to develop a stronghold. Looking at conflict prevention, USAID works to reduce the reach of conflict and prevent the spread of violence, instability, and transnational crime. Disease prevention, have I mentioned how big USAID's portfolio is? Global health works to protect against disease and spread by monitoring and preventing and responding to infectious diseases. None of these are my words. This is all online. You can look up the USAID Stop Work and see the really real and really local impact of this week's actions. Thank you.
So it's 8 o'clock, but I'm going to keep going. You guys are welcome to head out if you'd like. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. But we're going to probably go over by 10 or 15 minutes to get some people in line. And then, like I said, I'll stay afterwards as well if you want to talk to me individually. Go ahead.
Congressman, thank you for being here. I just want to follow up on that last point. Actually, I work for a nonprofit that receives the largest part of its funding from USAID. Part of my job is working for an organization called Freedom House, which documents the decline of democracy in the world. I would serve as an expert on authoritarianism in the Eurasian space, so I'm actually an expert on Russian autocracy, as well as what's happening in Central Europe and in Hungary and Slovakia right now. And I have received a stop work order. So now my job, which is to advise the House Foreign Affairs Committee and Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the rise of authoritarianism and how to combat it, I'm not doing my job. I'm sitting on my hands all day, watching these things play out in Serbia and Georgia and Russia, no longer able to impact the situation. And that's what the government is paying me to do, is really to provide advice and research on what's happening in the world. And I am very concerned that it's making us less safe. I mean, every day when I'm supposed to be working, I'm talking to our allies in the Democratic Community in Belarus or Uzbekistan or the European Parliament, to talking about how we together as allies can fight the growing rise of this authoritarianism. I'm really concerned that, it's a $40 billion sector we're talking about with foreign aid. There's a protest tomorrow at the Senate a rally in support of the foreign aid. Anything you can do, just get the message out that this is making us a lot less safe. Thank you.
In the last couple of days, funding has been paused or cut off to the National Science Foundation. The NSF funds medical research. It also funds cybersecurity scholarships. My own son was able to get a cybersecurity degree using that scholarship program. There's a lot that the National Science Foundation does. And the problem is the recipients of these grants are not in a position to file lawsuits. They don't have the deep pockets to pay the attorneys. So who is supposed to step in and deal with that? You're saying Congress cannot, but this means that all these grant recipients, the scholarship recipients, are being cut off and they have no real recourse because they can't afford to file a lawsuit.
It's a good question. I think there are a lot of different organizations that are set up. It wouldn't be for every individual. There would be a lawyer assigned to them, right? There's a lot of contracts. There's trillions of dollars that go in and out. But we would generally want to make sure that the power of the purse is being executed, right? And so I've already seen of the lawsuits that we've had, there are 5 or 10 different groups already that have filed them. There's others that are ready to file them. And so, but we'll see. I don't know exactly which group would handle that, but I'm on the Science and Tech Committee. I think investments in NSF, for instance, is critical to our country. It's the best investment you can make in tech and innovation and science, and so we want to continue to push that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, we had a lot of people who were outside the room who couldn't get in, so if you're able to or would like to head out to give them a shot as well, that'd be great. If you're outside and want to ask a question, please come on in and get in line as well too. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's take a quick 30-second break.
Sir, if you'd like to use it anonymously, if that's okay, you can totally quote me anonymously if you're using a quote for the page. Okay, yeah, just, okay, I understand. Thank you very much, of course. Not to worry, it's okay.
So much outside want to come in. Promise next time we'll get a bigger room.
Everything comes back to that.
You want to go ahead, so.
I'm Selah. I grew up around here. I recognize that you may not have all the answers, and I recognize that there are political and legal policies and procedures in place. Given the lack of adherence to those policies by this administration, it seems to me that there are a lot of us that need to be brave in ways that we never anticipated. How are you holding other congressmen accountable during sessions and various votes to adhere to the needs of their constituents rather than bow under the political pressures from the administration? And my second question, when it comes to being brave in a lack of checks and balances, who will be brave enough to take Trump, Vance, and Elon out of office if and when the time comes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been on a few panels where they ask this question, are you willing to work in a bipartisan way to do what's best for the country? And I've seen a couple people on the other side lately respond positively, but then some say, well, I wasn't elected to work with the other side. And I wasn't elected to do anything but to work with this president. And I hope that ultimately, if there's a difference between what the president thinks and what they think, that they will voice their disapproval or disagreement. I know, when Biden would do something Democrats disagreed, they would let him know about it, right? I know that when George W. Bush did things and Republicans disagreed, they would let him know about it. And so I hope that we don't have a Republican Party that just does what Trump says, that will voice the disagreement. That's so important right now. Thank you.
Hi. After an hour or so of all these questions, I think we could all agree The norms aren't shattered, they have been incinerated and will never come back. I think our judicial branch can perhaps be a norm, but I fear that Democratic leadership and the opposition leadership are bringing like a wooden spoon to a gunfight. Leader Jeffries texting God is great. He is great. That is not going to work with people who exploded the norms that no longer exist. So I would just like to encourage you, especially on oversight, because Comer is a tool, go after him hard. He's the Jasmine project of the Mid-Atlantic region, and and the senators, but no are my dear colleagues across the aisle, my friends across the aisle. No, they have made enemies of the opposition party, and I think they needed to be treated the way they treat others. Pretty sure God is great and sent that to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, does the Democratic Party have a plan to obstruct and fight the rollout of Project 2025 and help organize its constituents against these abusive and corrosive actions taken by Trump and his cronies? Obviously, you are not going to get much help from the Republican Party, so it is the Democratic Party that needs to be out of this.
Yeah, there's a couple things. We talked a lot about the lawsuits, but we talked about the committees, but we also, there are some really key parts of the agenda for this administration where they don't have the votes, and you may know what I'm talking about. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to use all the leverage we possibly have, given that we have a math problem in both chambers, to use our leverage to the fullest extent possible. And then two, we have to speak up, which is a theme I'm hearing tonight. We have to speak up, we have to speak loudly, we have to use like everything in our disposal to just fight and let this administration know that what they're doing is wrong and illegal.
So we are going to see lockstep no votes down lists on some of these coming topics in the administration?
Likely. I mean, there's people I know there's a lot of stuff that was just kind of, passes 435 to 0, right? And so that's not the fight we're going to pick. But there are definitely some things that, for instance, to do some of this stuff, they need funding for some of these agencies. We don't want shutdowns, right? But we also want to make sure that, we stand up and voice our concerns about any sort of proposal we put together for the next time we have a fight on the budget. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you for your time today.
Hi, good evening, Suhas. I'm Andrea Moore from Potomac Green. I'm retired from the intelligence community. I just thought you, in addition to looking at the Treasury pay system as well as OPM, according to the New Republic, they have also, DOGE has also accessed the Enterprise for Human Resources Integration, as well as USA Jobs, and of course, both of those contain personal identification information. The Enterprise integration has evaluations, disciplinary actions, and probably violate HIPAA rules if these people have access to them. Anecdotally, I have heard that someone that retired literally on Friday from the government was notified by OPM that their systems were down and they would not be able to process her retirement. I would be concerning because we know there can be delays with doing that. And lastly, just wanted to know, it's a little off topic, but since we're talking about Social Security issues, it sounds like Trump has signed an executive order to establish a sovereign wealth fund for the country. That's on Fox, Newsweek, and NBC. And I was wondering, is that some kind of move on their behalf to move Social Security and pensions and OPM into some kind of being paid for the sovereign wealth fund? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know the answer to that last question. And I'm very looking forward to exploring that more because that would be a really bad idea if that was the case. So we'll continue looking at that. Thanks for the other
Sure
information
enough.
as well. Maybe we can
Thank
talk
you.
offline. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. I'm Sage Chandler. I'm a former White House trade negotiator. I handled Canada and Mexico. I sent most of the staff, and I'm welcome to help you at any time you need. I sent my information in. My question for right now is, I fully understand your limitations on legal action. I'm wondering if there's anything that would prevent you or Congress more largely to create a lawsuit tracker that your constituents could tap into, but it would be better if it could be for the whole country. If executive order by executive order, class action suits, issue by issue, if there was some place that people could go to track them and see, because a lot of us work in large trade associations and government contractors and may not have our eyes on everything that's moving, and if there were a central place that people could go and find out where there's action, where people could join in for amicus briefs, all of that, that would be really helpful, I think.
I think it's a good idea. It may not be us, but we'll find someone who can do that, and we'll try to get that information out. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who has already spoken. I've learned a lot tonight. Something that you said earlier is public pressure is working, and I'd love to know if there are Republicans who are concerned about what's happening. You have a room full of people here, and extra, and then some, who are willing to act. So if you can help us by letting us know where to push those lawmakers and how. So who do we call or email? And let's strategize together. Is there a way for you to inform us, use your position, your information to inform us so we can push? If public pressure is working, we need to strategize.
I like that, and a lot of times people really like to hear from our constituents, especially, so none of us are any other lawmakers' constituents, but if you have friends or family in red districts and they want to reach out to their member of Congress and let them know that even if your friend is Republican, but maybe they can reach out and say, hey, I've got a friend or family member who lives in an area with a lot of federal workers and this is a terrible idea. Like, if you get enough, I track all of the emails and calls that we have, we have a report where it's like this number of people said they're for this number of people against it. And so they hear enough from people, they may start to feel like, oh, this is a bad idea, I'm going to talk to my leadership. So, anything, that's just one idea off the top of my head, but we should be using anything and everything right now, at this point, right now, to try to get across our message. So I'm going to continue. I'll probably put out, in addition to some of the stuff that I mentioned, like the guide, I might put out some call to actions as well after this. Thank you.
All right, hopefully I'm talking into the microphone. I wanted to briefly mention 2 points ago. I didn't hear much talk about DEI, and I'll engage with you offline about it. In reading executive orders that have been coming out, there was one that came out a couple of days ago that purported to revoke all collective bargaining agreements that were put in force 30 days before Trump assumed office, using all sorts of inflammatory language. That's highly illegal, and I'm very concerned that not only our federal employees, but unions are going to get busted up. My friends at the Treasury Union and at the AFG are very, very, very concerned. I myself am not a federal employee, but the question I have is, there seems to be a lot of extrajudicial actions going on, especially with the DOJ agency. What's preventing Congress from authorizing the DOJ or the FBI to put an end to it?
So, of course, Congress, again, I don't think there's a majority in Congress that would do that, unfortunately. Like I said, I have a math problem being a minority. But two, I think that when there's illegal behavior happening, right, usually those are the agencies that spring to action. So those are the very agencies that are also under attack, probably for a reason. And so it's an unprecedented time right now. We've never had to think about some of these things in my lifetime. And so it's a good question. And we just have to explore all our options. But right now, we're doing what we can. We're going to me too, and that's why I wanted to have this town halls to hear more ideas, so thank you.
So first thing, I wanted to let everyone know, if you're wanting to mobilize, there's the 50-51 protest in DC and all 50 state capitals this Wednesday, the 5th. Also, I wanted to ask earlier, is Congress looking into any of the election interference that occurred in the 2024 presidential election? Because I know Trump didn't really win the election. They called all 7 swing states for him in what, like 4 hours election night? I don't believe it. There's also the comment he made recently about Musk being familiar with the vote counting machines in Pennsylvania and campaigning for him. So is Congress looking into any of that at all, or acknowledging it in any way?
Again, the majority of Congress is in the president's party, and so I haven't seen any actions to look into that.
Why not from any of the Democrats? So why is no one?
So to look into that, for instance, one thing you can do is call a hearing on it, and maybe use your subpoena power to bring in experts and try to investigate what went on, for instance. But unfortunately, being a minority, we don't have the power. We don't have the power to call the hearings, for instance. That's why, even though it's a slim majority, it's such an important majority, and one that I'm hoping will change in a couple of years. But in the meantime, right now we're so limited in that sense when it comes to investigation and those types of power. Thank you.
Hello, Congressman. Thank you so much for having us all tonight. I am a mom of 2 lovely girls who have less rights than I had at their age. I am a former teacher. Don't want to even talk about what's going to happen to the Department of Education. I'm wearing a mask because I have a medically compromised child. We've been masked since COVID, and I have no idea what's going on with bird flu or 12 or 13 other things that may be going around that we have no idea because the CDC, NIH, everybody's been shut down. I am angry. I am seething. I'm here tonight with a husband who's just had surgery, and I shouldn't be here, but I am because I'm angry. I want you and I want all of the other Democrats as angry as I am. Enough of the high road. Get off the high road. It's gotten us nowhere. It's gotten us Trump. I stood with some of your people in the Leesburg early voting, handing out Democratic flyers, handing out your flyers. I was called a liar because I had a flyer about Project 2025. If I can find people that call me liars, I truly don't know what I'd do. But I need you all as angry as I am. Because our lives, and tariffs and the rest of this, yes, they're important, yes, all of that, they're a smokescreen. If they can go into our capital and destroy and do unmentionable things to our capital, why can't some of our leaders get some police, some FBI, somebody into the Treasury Department and yank Musk the hell out of there? I like you, you seem to be a nice guy. I want to see you angry.
We have like 4 more minutes, and so if you're in line and you've already put entry, ask a question, find me afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, we had, the framers knew that this was going to happen someday. They knew. Madison, Hamilton, Jefferson, they knew, and they put the Constitution in place. There was, and I'm a Democrat, but I have voted for both sides. And one of the things that, one person that I really admire was the late Senator John McCain. The numbers are slim within both, the House and the Senate. We need to find the 10 or 12 John McCains that are in the Republican Party, and I think we need to find them, and I urge you to find those individuals, work with them, because I think that's what's going to be needed, is finding those John McCains that are still there. So.
Congressman, thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. Hard for me to follow.
We're going to have two more questions. These are the last two, and then if you're in line, I'll come right to you first. So, go ahead.
Hard for me to follow up the mother with her anger, but I also want to add that I'm terrified as well. I don't know how familiar you and the Democratic Party are with Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel's plan for Project 2025, and their plan to make it like split the U.S. into sovereign nations that they rule over with cryptocurrency or whatever. And I know it's a math problem and you have issues with that, but I just don't see the urgency of how immediate this threat of Elon Musk against our country is. And I just want to bring it up again that this is something that, I don't know, I don't have solutions, I don't have an answer or suggestion, but he is an immediate threat to the, I don't know, existence of this country. Question there, I just want to emphasize the point that Musk is a serious problem.
So yeah, a quick comment. So Speaker Jeffries put out a Dear Colleague letter. Hopefully you've read that by now. The first main point of that letter is to use the upcoming Funding Reconciliation Act to make sure that we get these actions in to protect OMB and so forth. I just wanted to say, I know we as Democrats have been afraid of government shutdowns. I think in this case we're already experiencing the pain of a government shutdown amongst many of our contractors and people. I think you should not be afraid to do that, to shut the government down. And it's on us to help each other. And I can say, come to St. Thomas Church on Saturday and we'll give you a week's worth of food if you need it.
Thank you. All right, apologies. I know some people are waiting for a while, but I'll come answer your questions in person. But I want to thank you all for coming today. I learned a lot, and I have some action items. I have a long list of action items here. But please keep in touch with us. Please keep reaching out to us. Please send us information that you're hearing or that you're experiencing as well. I think that's going to be really helpful to us and as we move forward. And then we'll try to update you as well. We have a newsletter. We've got social media. Sign up for it. But stay in touch. We're fighting for you. I promise. We're going to do everything possible to try to make sure that some of these things that are happening get stopped and reversed, and that they don't happen again.